All right, welcome to another Small Business Pivots. And today we have a very special guest on one of my favorite topics, and that is the mind, the thing between your ears that can make or break success for you. And everyone knows, if you've listened to the show, I know no one can introduce themselves and their business like the business owner. So I let you do that so we get your name and your business correct, and then we'll get right into the meat of the subject.
Okay, Michael, thank you. My name is John Mitchell, and I think that your audience is going to find this conversation interesting. But can I make a bold claim?
Absolutely.
I think some of your audience, the ones that are driven, will find this life-changing.
I agree.
So with that as an entrance, would you like me to basically tell my story?
Well, let us introduce the show and we'll be right back. And I don't want to interrupt your story, so we'll do this first and we'll be right back. Hang on, everybody. Welcome to Small Business Pivots, a podcast produced for small business owners. I'm your host, Michael Morrison, founder and CEO of Boss, where we make business ownership simplified for success. Our business is helping yours grow. Boss offers business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. All right, welcome back to Small Business Pivots. Today we have a very special guest, John Mitchell, and he is today's modern version of two things. One is, if you remember the movie National Treasure, we were looking for treasure. This is the book, but it's missing something. He is today's Nicolas Cage. He found the missing secret, and let's get started. But you got to share your story first so people understand where this came from.
Okay, Michael. Well, when I turned 50, I just wasn't as successful as I thought I should be. And Michael, I started out as a CPA, and when I hit about 30, I became an entrepreneur, and I was in like 7 businesses in my 30s and 40s. And so when I hit 50, though, just not as successful as I thought I should be. And I had 2 main goals in my life. One was to make enough money so I didn't have to work, and the other one was to find the woman of my dreams. And but at 50, falling short on both of them. And on the money, always did pretty well, always made 200, 300 grand a year as an entrepreneur. But as materialistic as this sounds, I realized at 50, I had to start netting $1 million a year if I was ever going to have that exceptional life I dreamed of. And then on the girl at 50, I'd never been married, although I can tell you I did a lot of interviewing. Now, I called it interviewing, Michael. My friends called it begging, but I liked interviewing better. But nevertheless, so at 50, I'm like, how am I going to change things? And I don't know, it's probably 3 months after I turned 50, a pearl of wisdom comes to me. Find the top book in the world on success and apply that book literally word for word to my life. And so immediately, I jump out of bed as that idea comes to me, and I start doing the research. And to my surprise, I find that there's one book that's been read by 150 million people. And it's the top book in the world on success by a factor of 10. And that book is Think and Grow Rich, which I bet you've read, right?
I have a few times, absolutely.
Right. And so I'm like, wow, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And so the next day, Michael, I'm like a heat-seeking missile. I go to the bookstore, buy the book, read the book. Then I discover the problem. The book says there's a secret for success, but the author only gives us half of the secret. It's on the reader to figure out the other half. So I'm like, oh, great. I'm disappointed, and I mope around for probably 3 weeks. And then one day, Michael, I just get up and I go, John, come on. Just man up, figure out the damn secret. And so I immersed myself in the book and probably read it 20 times over like a 2 or 3 month period of time. And what emerged was I was blessed to figure out the full secret of Think and Grow Rich and a 12-minute a day technique to apply it. And quickly, as I'm applying it to a new business I'm starting in the reverse mortgage field, my income starts doubling and doubling and doubling to where 4 years later, I was blessed to be making 25 times the 200 to 300 grand a year I was making the prior 20 years. And of course, I felt so blessed. But Michael, you know what was so cool about it? I could see why it was happening. I mean, I was playing the game of life at a higher level, and I could feel it. I mean, I could do things I could never do before. I had a level of control over myself I'd never experienced before. And I just became fascinated by the fact that you could take two key scientific principles and apply them to your life and so materially impact your success. And so once I had enough money so I didn't have to work, which was like 10 years ago, I decided, well, I'm going to share this with the world. And so about 3 months after I sold my company 10 years ago, I meet the former chancellor and president here at the University of Texas, and I tell him my story, and he says, hey, you got to teach this at the University of Texas, and why don't we teach it together? And then that led, he introduced me to the athletic director here at the University of Texas, and he says, well, I want to learn this 12-minute a day technique, and so I teach it to him. And that led to becoming the mental coach for the 18 head coaches. And so today I teach students and athletes my 12-minute a day superpower in a class that's called The Science of Success, The Science of Leveraging Yourself. And I teach my 12-minute a day methodology to adults by licensing my methodology to coaches and through my book.
There's a lot to unpack there. Did you realize what you had when you were increasing your revenue? Because you mentioned you exited your business about 10 years ago, and then you started teaching others that. Did you realize what you had, or have you been refining it through all those years and then came up with, this is the nugget right here?
You know, as soon as I started experiencing, as soon as I started applying this methodology to my life, immediately I saw I was playing the game of life at a higher level. Immediately. And of course, over the last 20 years, I've been refining it, but the core was there at the inception. And, you know, think about this. I love that you're a business coach, but how do you create success in your life? And let me throw that out to the audience. Think about that. How do you create success in your life? When I'm in person with people, oftentimes I see that they've never been asked that question, and I bet a lot of your clients have never really thought about that. And what I see is that most people are just winging life. They don't really have a way of doing life. They just get up and do the best they can. And the effect of that is they have nothing pulling them forward to their desired life, and therefore they recreate their past. Mm-hmm. And when you look at that a little deeper, now keep in mind, that was me until I was 50. So I'm not throwing people under the bus. That's my observation. But if you look at this a little deeper, you see that there's two fundamental problems that we have to overcome as human beings. The first one is that we are innately wired for survival, and that causes the vast majority of our thoughts to be fear-based. And then the second thing that we must overcome is that 95% of our thoughts and actions are unconscious. And so the effect of both those things together is when we open our eyes each morning, hey, we're on autopilot most of the day, innately wired to be fear-based, and we're thinking about our problems and recent slights, and that stimulates that negative inner voice. And it's just a lousy, ineffective way to live. And like I said, I should know I lived that way for 50 years. And there's nothing pulling you forward to your desired life. And so here's what I found the solution to be. It's feeding the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself each day. Exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and precisely how you're going to achieve your clearly defined goals. And when you do that, then the right actions start happening automatically. And those right actions then create the life you want. And you have this powerful force pulling you forward to your desired life. And it takes 12 minutes a day. Does that make sense?
How what would you call gets a sore spot or gets under the hood? Yeah, that really makes sense. And when I ask that question to clients, usually they can't answer or they're thinking about it. And I say, can I give you a hint? And they're like, please. And I'm like, well, nothing intentional happens without a plan. In other words, if you get up and the day takes care of you, nothing that you want intentional is going to happen. You may get lucky. You might strike it rich. But nothing intentional. And that's what I love about this concept. I have read the book, Missing Secret. It's an incredible book, and it's a fast read. You can read it in a short few days to really absorb it. I've already read it twice, and then there's I call it an assessment. You call it a GPS template, I believe. And so it kind of helps set the tone of what you really want in life. But can you explain how that works and the 12 minutes, what that does to someone psychologically?
Right. Maybe the easiest way is to really explain the secret, and then we'll get into the science behind the secret. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
So I think the easiest way to do this is maybe tell you another story about how I discovered it and what happened. So, as I mentioned, not as successful as I thought I should be at 50. But Michael, there was a little more going on with me at 50 than feeling the scarcity of time. My mom was dying of pancreatic cancer. And I'm in Dallas at the time where I grew up. And so every night after work, I'd go see her and I'd love on her and hold her hand. And it was just everything I could do to keep from crying in front of her. And so what would happen is every night I'd see her and spend 2 hours with her, and then I'd go in the cold, dark hospital parking lot and just cry my eyes out. And I mean, cry for like 45 minutes to an hour before I could even drive home. And this is going on every night for like 8 weeks. And of course, I'm feeling the impending loss of my mom, but Michael, I'd never experienced this level of excruciating pain like this. And I knew there was something deeper sort of going on. And what I came to realize was that I was letting my mom down with my life. And, my parents gave me everything. They sent me to Jesuit high school in Dallas, and they really couldn't afford it. They sent me to the University of Texas and paid for everything. Yet night after night, I'm there sobbing in my car, feeling like I'm letting my mom down. She believed in me. She invested in me. And all I had to show for it at 50 was the average life. And I hated the average life because I just knew I was capable of so much more. And meanwhile, every night I'm reading Think and Grow Rich. And what I ultimately realized is the pain I was feeling was like rocket fuel in causing me to go deeper into Think and Grow Rich than any other person on the planet ever had. And that's why I was able to, I believe, figure out the full secret. But does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. You've mentioned success and you didn't feel successful. And I know working with business owners, they don't they can't really measure success. How do you define success? Are there some common traits that people have that they go, I feel successful? Because there's some business owners we work with and they set this milestone out there. Like, let's just say it's $1,000,000. And I had one just a couple of months ago that hit the million, surpassed it. And then he just go, I thought I'd feel different.
Right.
So can you help us with that?
Well, I think that's a great question, first of all. But I think that I realize, and I know you do too, that life is precious. Boy, life is precious. And we just want to play the game of life at our full potential. I mean, to me, that's all we can do. Do our best and have a good understanding of what doing our best is, and and play the game of life at our full potential. Not just in business, but in having a great marriage, having being healthy. Would you agree with that?
I would. In fact, you started to mention those. Can you talk about the different facets of life that you do in your book that helps people?
Right. Well, if you don't mind, can I sort of roll into the
Oh,
secret?
keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You just had such a good question. I wanted to honor that. So, one night during this period where I'm going and seeing my mom every night, there was this one pivotal night where everything changed, and like every other night, I go see her, spend 45 minutes in my car in the hospital parking lot, crying my eyes out. But Michael, somehow this night just felt different. It was snowing in Dallas, and it doesn't snow very often in Dallas. And so it just feels different as I'm driving home to, I see the big snowflakes hitting my windshield. And so I get home and I plop myself in my comfy chair and I start reading a few pages from Think and Grow Rich. Again, this is like the 20th time I've read it, trying to figure out the secret. And but this night I read that your success in life comes down to your daily actions. The cumulative effect of your daily actions determines your success in each area of your life. And I'm like, okay, I never thought about it quite that simply, but I certainly buy that. And then, Michael, I read that 95% of your daily actions are unconscious. 95% of your daily actions are unconscious. I'm like, that's interesting. Well, by now I'm tired and I'm ready to go to bed, so I wash my face and brush my teeth and put my little head on the pillow, and I just can't stop thinking about what I'd read, that 95% of my daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. And then, Michael, it hits me. I don't control my daily actions, yet those daily actions are the very thing that's determining my success. And that moment was like getting struck by lightning. And I remember laying in my bed and just sitting up, and I stare out the window into my backyard and I see the snow falling, and it's one of those surreal moments. And then I began to think, well, what controls my daily actions then? Well, if 95% of them are unconscious, hey, it's my subconscious mind. It's my autopilot. And the subconscious mind is only influenced by repetition. And all this time, I've been controlling only my intentions with my conscious mind, not my actions, which are controlled by the subconscious mind. And Michael, that's when it all sort of clicked. And I started to realize I wasn't underperforming because I lacked intelligence or drive. Hey, I was underperforming because I had this false belief about success that I had had for 50 years. And that false belief was that I controlled my daily actions. I thought I controlled my daily actions. And I dare say that everybody listening to this has that very same false belief and is holding them back. And once I sort of finally got my eyes open to to the truth that my autopilot and subconscious mind control my daily actions. And without programming, I'm innately wired to be fear-based and reactive from being wired for survival. Then basically the full secret of Think and Grow Rich came to me. And I saw that the full secret is this: what you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And let me say that again. What you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And what that means is you create immense clarity about your life. And you define, here's exactly the person I want to be, here's exactly what I want to accomplish, and here's precisely how I'm going to achieve my clearly defined goals. And then you put that clarity on a template I created, which basically organizes the clarity in each area of your life. And then I fed that clarity to myself each day. It took 12 minutes a day. And Michael, I noticed that three things then happened. And this started happening immediately. First, I felt an immense sense of control over my life. Well, of course I would. I'm feeding the succinct articulation of my desired life to myself each day. And I'm that control, I'm impacting my career, my health, my romantic relationship, all at the same time. And I felt that level of control over all those areas. And then the second thing I felt was confidence, which was a direct result of the control I felt. And I also found that I was way less stressed because the mind thrives on order. And as you would know, if you're feeding the succinct articulation of your desired life, you're creating immense order in the mind, and that relieves any stress. And then the third and final thing I experienced was after 21 days, the magic happens and the science kicks in, and the right actions start happening automatically without thinking. And I began playing the game of life at a higher level, and truly life-changing. And it's just profoundly simple, I find.
Do you think just reading your envisioned life is enough, or is it something that over that period of time you started memorizing and you could actually see it? I mean, how did that work? Because it's a lot of information that you're digesting day by day,
Right.
But it's very clear, crystal clear, actually.
Right.
So is it a process that you're trying to memorize it, or does it just naturally happen?
Well, great question. No, you're not really memorizing it, although a lot of it does get memorized. As you create this template, and maybe it's worthwhile explaining the template in a little more detail, you think?
Sure.
So the template is...
You're listening to Small Business Pivots. This podcast is produced by my company, Boss. Our business is helping yours grow. Boss offers business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share it as well. Now let's get back to our special guest.
As you create this template, and maybe it's worthwhile explaining the template in a little more detail, you think?
Sure.
So the template is 2 pages, basically. On the front is the ideal you in the 5 key areas of your life: yourself, your health, your romantic relationship, your spirituality, and your career. So front page, ideal you in those 5 key areas of your life. Then on the back, those same five areas, but you also will note, here's the improvements I want in each area of my life. And you'll also define a goal for your career, a goal for your romantic relationship, a goal for your health. And you're now living your life quarter by quarter. And so you'll define, here's the goal in that particular area of your life. Here's the why behind it. here's the 4 or 5 key behaviors associated with the goal, and then here's how I'm measuring it. And again, the time frame is always the end of the quarter. And so that's essentially how the template works. And so this template changes as you change. And hopefully that's the answer to your question. That as you're feeding this to yourself, you're going down the rabbit hole of understanding your life at a deeper and deeper level, and that causes you to change your template. And like I change mine, probably once a week. Now, most people that are doing my methodology aren't necessarily changing it that often. But the point is, it's a living, breathing document that changes as you change. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And do the accompanying worksheets that you created, or at least they were listed in your book, like the weekly, using those as well with this template? Is that what you're referring to?
Right. And, I'll give you an example of this because we've been talking about it sort of in theory, but let me give you a tangible example of this. And this happened, I don't know, a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I have a client that lives in Portland, and he decides to come to Austin and bring his girlfriend. Actually, he wanted us to meet him and his girlfriend in San Antonio, which is about an hour away from Austin. So we do that, and it's around Christmas time. And so Ginger, oh, by the way, I met my wife about 1.5 years after doing this methodology, which was even better than the money. But so it's around Christmas. She's out and about. I'm out and about. I tell her, babe, meet me at Starbucks at 2:00. We'll jump in my car and go down to San Antonio. So I get to Starbucks a little early, and Michael, I decide I'm going to have a brownie. It goes Christmas. What the heck? So I start eating this brownie. And one of the things I affirm to myself in my Life GPS template is that I'm aware of everything I put in my mouth. Okay, well, I'm eating that brownie. Brownie doesn't taste very good, but I'm aware I'm eating it, and I go ahead and finish the brownie. And so the Jen shows up, we jump in my car, and I go, babe, I just don't feel very good. I've sort of lost my appetite. But we go and have dinner with our friends, and I come back that night and I change one word in my template. And I change it from I'm aware of everything I put in my mouth to I evaluate everything I put in my mouth. And Michael, the next night we go and have dinner with her son, have Mexican food, and I order the tacos. Tacos come, not very good, but this time I'm evaluating everything I put in my mouth, and I slide those tacos away, don't have another bite. All that happens unconsciously. And that night when I was laying in bed, I'm like, boy, if that's not a superpower where you can get yourself to take the right actions automatically without thinking, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Well, on your website, Think It, Be It, you've got the GPS template for people to fill out after they read the book and understand. I encourage them, they have to get the book first to know what's going on. Plus, they have to get the code there. And but the GPS template, so you're saying that's a living, breathing document on your website too. So anytime I change something, I can go back into those questions and change it. So it's usable for the future.
Well, here's how it works. It's actually way easier than that. So a couple of years ago, in fact, probably a year ago, actually, I created an AI algorithm where all you have to do is answer about 50 questions, press a button, and 10 seconds later, that template is customized to your unique life. Because what I see happens is when I tell people the full secret of Think and Grow Rich is to create immense clarity and feed the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself each day, typically they'll go, huh, that sounds pretty good. And then they think, oh, wait a minute, I don't know the level of clarity that I necessarily need in each area of my life. Well, no problem. I've figured that out. All you got to do is answer the questions. And once you generate the template, it's a Word document and it's on your computer. We don't save it. We just give you the ability to create it. And so it's super simple.
So it's easier to create. I mean, I'm sorry. It's easier to edit the document is what you're saying than to go back in and.
Yes. Okay. Way easier.
And then when you do quarterly updates, you said you enhance yours for someone like, let's say I put in my quarterly goals. And for our listeners, I bought the book. I did the template. So I'm coming from a side of I've done this and it's very powerful. And I encourage our listeners to do the same. But when I hit my quarterly goals, is it easier to edit the template or go back in there and update the entire template so it matches?
Well, because it's a Word document, you just take the template that now you've saved on your computer.
Okay.
And you don't have to access my website anymore.
Okay.
But one thing I think that is foundational to this that your audience would find interesting is the core science behind this. And you'll be, because you're into the brain, I think you'll find this very interesting, and it's amazingly simple. So the core science is, here's how the human mind works. Conscious mind sets your intention and is influenced by logic. Well, subconscious mind controls your daily actions, or 95% of them, and it's only influenced by repetition. And as an example of this, let's say you want to lose weight. Well, conscious mind sets the intention to lose weight based on the logic of the health benefits. But the reason people fail to lose weight is not from lack of intention, but from lack of influencing the part of their brain that controls their actions, their eating, their exercising. And you can see when you feed the succinct articulation of your desired life, which also articulates the key actions you need to be taking, that's why after approximately 21 days, the right actions start happening automatically. And it's like a light bulb goes on, and you're like, whoa, this is pretty amazing, because you've never experienced the right actions happening automatically, probably. And
right.
So that's how it works.
So you offer, other than the purchase of the book, you offer the template and everything for free, but then you also do coaching. Can you tell us a little bit about that, like what it's like to work with you and who you work with?
Well, great question, and this is enlightening, and I'd love your thoughts on this one. So, before we came on the air, we were talking about Darren Hardy.
Yep.
And so a few years ago, I thought, if I'm going to spend the rest of my life sharing this with the world, I want to go find the top expert in the world, whoever he or she is, and find out, are there any flaws in this? Are there any competition out there? Just what does an expert, an impartial expert, think about this? And so I write a big check, and Ginger and I go out to La Jolla, California, and spend 3 days with Darren. And the moment comes to show him the template and to explain it. And so he's holding the template, and I explain it, and he goes, wow, this is pretty good. This is really good. But he says, John, people aren't going to spend 12 minutes a day on this. And I'm like, Darren, how the heck can that be? Yeah. I mean, at 25x my income, Time Magazine did a cover story on the science behind it, and we're applying the central concept of the top book in the world on success. I mean, what do you mean they're not going to spend 12 minutes a day on this? And he sort of smiles and he says, John, you're new to the success business. And he says, the dirty little secret is that most people won't do anything to impact their success. And because more success is merely a preference, merely a preference. And he says, that's 98% of people, believe it or not. And Michael, I saw at that moment how right he was. And because I was looking at it, thinking everybody out there is just like me. And they were not like me. And what ended up happening was, and this gets to your question about coaching, I'm like, okay, let's just go find a bunch of John Mitchells, people that are making 200 grand a year that want to make $1 million a year. Let's go find them. And I started working with a number of EO members, Entrepreneurs Organization. And so I'd get them and I would make a compelling guarantee to them. I said, if I can't double your income within a year, I'll give you your money back. Now, you had to be making a minimum of 200 grand a year. And so off I go. And, if you play out the math, like I would charge them $20,000 to teach them the methodology over 8 weeks. And over 3 years, they'd get a 35 or 40 to 1 return. Well, I do about 10 people, and it takes me almost 2 years. And I realize that, as I have successes, and I never had to give anybody their money back, but I also filmed the testimonials of what had happened. But after I'd done about 10 of them, I'm like, wait a minute. This is not a leveraged way to do this. The smarter way to do it is to license my methodology to coaches, because they are accumulating those 2%. Anybody that's, driven enough to write a check to a coach, they're in the 2%, right?
Right. Yep.
And so that was a game changer for me. And so, that's what I do now regarding coaching.
Work with coaches and set them up to help their clients.
Exactly. And I think with the coaches, I solved the biggest problem they have, which is getting the client to do what you say you're to do. Do you think that's the biggest problem with a coach?
Yeah. First, can I say, if you're a client of mine and listening to this, close your ears. But yes, that is the problem. That's the biggest challenge and problem, is getting them to do what they need to do, and they know they need to do it, but it's just too hard. Sometimes the status quo is easier. I don't understand that, but to some it is. So,
I think I have the solution for that, but I want you to argue this with me if you disagree.
Oh yeah, I'll argue or debate or whatever.
So think about this. Like one of the techniques I get my clients to do is this idea of deep thinking 2 times a week. This is a habit the top entrepreneurs in the world do, but it's an example of something a coach would give a client to do. Well, when I would go to people who are not doing my methodology, and I'd say, here's what I want you to do: carve out about 30 minutes 2 times a week, deep think, follow this simple 3-step process, go do it. They're like, okay, great, that sounds good. Well, all I'm doing, again, is affecting their intentions. We're all conscious mind here. My conscious mind is saying to their conscious mind, go do this. Well, the reason they can't do it is because they're not influencing the doing part of their brain. Until they start feeding that to themselves every day, then they can do it, because that repetition is what rewires their autopilot, so that on the 2 days a week they choose to do it, they automatically do it. Does that make sense?
I agree with that. No debate needed. I have multiple coaches in different areas of my life, and when they send me kind of the assessment or the wrap up or whatever, of our sessions, I carry those around with me to remind me I need to do this, and it works. When I don't have those, it's just a free for all for the day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. And there's got to be a meaning and why behind it and all that good stuff. Do have a quick question though. So we have the thick Think and Grow Rich book and Missing Secret. I have read both Think and Grow Rich multiple times, but for those that haven't, would they be able to just deep dive into your book and get the same results, or is it something that they probably need to read both just to make it better?
I think all they have to do is read my book, because what I find with so many people who have read Think and Grow Rich is they're stumped by, well, what is the secret? Because he never gives you the secret. But when you know the secret, it jumps out at you all the time. So I think the answer to your question is read my book first, then go read Think and Grow Rich.
I agree. I just didn't know because I have read them both, so I didn't know if that would be different or not. Because there's really nothing in your book that references that, other than there's a secret missing in this book, and you're the Nicolas Cage of National Treasure.
Well, I tell you, and I want to make a difference in the lives of the people that are listening to this, and so let me share this point with you. The most significant thing I ever learned in my life is that 95% of my daily actions are unconscious. And again, the significance of that is your daily actions determine your success. And if you're not gaining control over those daily actions, hey, you're playing the game of life at 5% of your potential. And once you see the profound ramifications of 95% of your daily actions being unconscious, your life is never the same. And so I'm curious, on your end, do you buy that? Do you believe that 95% of your daily actions are unconscious?
100%.
Okay. So what are you doing about it?
I'm doing the Missing Secret, and I'm doing the GPS template so I can get better. No, actually,
Well, that is a perfect answer, Michael.
Okay, I'll stop there. No, but I do carry prior to this fascinating book, I carry around with me. I get up around 5 o'clock in the morning. I do my devotional. I do my affirmations, and I have me time. And so I go through I have daily mantras that I rehearse in my head.
Uh-huh.
So during the day, those just carry along with me when a certain circumstance comes up, they'll just pop up in my head. Like, remember this. I mean, it's just, it's an unconscious, surreal moment, but it's because I've set my day up before the day even gets started. That's what I did prior to this book. This is just going to enhance that even more.
Exactly. What you're doing, before you read my book, was beyond what 99% of people are doing. And you already started to see how that works. It's just that this probably takes it to the next level.
Absolutely.
And for your audience, I want to show you something, because again, if you get that 95% of your daily actions are unconscious, your life will never be the same. And so I want to explain exactly what happens. So you take an unconscious action, and then about 2 or 3 milliseconds later, you become conscious of it. And what happens oftentimes is people will go, well, wait a minute. I'm conscious of every action I take, therefore, none of my daily actions are unconscious. Well, that's fundamentally wrong. You're missing it, because although it's easy to understand why you would say that, the reality is, because your awareness happens almost instantaneously with taking the action, you think you consciously took the action. And I'll show you something that's pretty cool. I use ChatGPT a lot. And so let's ask her about this and give a little third-party verification of this. So, G, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. What would you like to know more about?
So I understand that 95% of a person's daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. Is that really true?
Yes, It's widely accepted in neuroscience that a significant portion of our daily thoughts and actions are influenced by unconscious processes. This includes habits, automatic responses, and routines that we perform without conscious thought. It's part of how our brain efficiently manages daily tasks. Does that help clarify?
Is it really 95%?
The 95% figure is an estimate, often cited to emphasize the substantial role of the subconscious mind. While the exact percentage may vary, it's true that a significant portion of our behaviors, thoughts, and decisions occur without conscious awareness. The key takeaway is that much of what we do is influenced by processes we're not actively aware of. Would you like to know more about how this works?
So let me ask you another question. So I understand that what actually happens is that you actually take the action unconsciously, and then a millisecond or two later, you become aware of it. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Many actions and decisions are initiated unconsciously, and we become aware of them slightly afterward. This process happens so quickly that it feels like we're consciously deciding in the moment. It's a fascinating aspect of how our brains work.
So can you give me two examples of this?
Sure. One example is driving a familiar route. You might find yourself reaching your destination without actively thinking about each turn because your subconscious takes over. Another example is typing on a keyboard. After years of practice, your fingers automatically find the keys without you consciously thinking about each letter.
Okay, thank you. So, the power, hopefully, of that is you hear a lot of statistics, but if I'm going to change the lives of the people listening to this, you got to accept this as fact. It is fact. It's easily researchable. But just think tonight when you put your head on the pillow, the implication in your life of 95% of your daily actions being unconscious.
Powerful, powerful. And we did mention Darren Hardy. And so you mentioned that I was already doing some things. And I do want to share with our audience, if you don't follow him, go follow him. He's got a great Darren Daily. That's where I learned a lot of my stuff. Brian Tracy, you mentioned him in your book as well.
Yeah.
Eat That Frog, Procrastination. I believe you mentioned that book, maybe a different book. But those are both great resources to follow, as well as now we have another one. John Mitchell, Missing Secret. So I encourage everyone to do that. I know people are intrigued, want to learn more. What's the best place to follow you on social media?
I have a special gift for your audience. I created a 9-minute video that explains the full secret of Think and Grow Rich and the science behind it. And if your audience will go to themissingsecret.org, themissingsecret.org. You can get that 9-minute video. It'll give you the link to the book, although you can buy it on Amazon. And, I think one thing I would also say about this is that I think what I bring to the success and human achievement field is something nobody else really brings. In that, as you know, there's a lot of brilliant people in the success business promoting this strategy or that strategy. But like we talked about a few minutes ago, all they're doing is influencing people's intentions. I mean, people have great strategies coming out their ears. What they need is to have those great strategies show up in their thoughts and actions automatically. And I'm teaching people an actual way of doing life. And I don't see anybody else really teaching that. And so that's my niche in the success world. And I'm passionate about helping people just play the game of life at their full potential.
Well, I love it. I love it. I always wrap up our episodes with a question, and that is, if you were in front of a room of business owners, different seasons of business, years of business, different industries, what's something that's applicable for all of them? It could be a quote, a book. I mean, obviously your book, but a quote, an insight, or something you've learned along the way owning businesses that they could all take home with them today.
Well, great question. I think it comes back to the secret of the top book in the world on success, that what you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And the thing I would say to your audience as we wrap up here is to appreciate how precious your life is. And a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, actually, I became a grandfather for the first time. And you'll appreciate this. The day after our grandbaby was born, Ginger and I go over and see the baby, and there's a lot of oohing and ahhing about the baby. And Michael, for some reason, they hand me the baby, and Ginger and Hannah walk away. And so I'm holding this precious little girl, and she's 1 day old, and I'm holding her in my arm, and I feel the warmth of her body. And Michael, I start to cry. I mean, tears are streaming down my face because I realize how precious her life is. And she's going to live to be 100 years old, and the quality of her life and her success in life is going to come down to the thoughts that are going on in her head most of the time. And so, I'm made the commitment that I'm going to influence the thoughts going on in her head. And so the message to your audience really is your life is precious. And tonight, when you put your head on the pillow, just ask yourself, if the next 5 years are like the last 5 years, will you be happy with that? And if the answer is no, stop winging life. Yeah. You now have a way to change it, and it just takes 12 minutes a day.
Awesome. Well, you've been a wealth of information and a blessing to many. You've impacted a lot of people today. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to Small Business Pivots. This podcast is created and produced by my company, Boss. Our business is growing yours. Boss offers flexible business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share it as well. If you need help growing your business, email me at michael@michaeldmorrison.com. We'll see you next time on Small Business Pivots.